It's time for Right Time Radio. I'm Lynn Donovan, and we're in the studio today with our guests. I'm so excited. I've known you, goodness, 5 or 6 years, haven't I?
Yeah, I think so.
This is Diane Campbell, and we met at an ACFW conference, which is American Christian Fiction Writers.
Correct.
In Colorado Springs. We actually sat side by side with each other, and she was pretty green back then, but now she's not so much. Now you're like on the board or something, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, quite
up and coming, right?
There you go. All part of what's going on. So Diane has agreed to share one of her books that she has recently written, and I'm really excited to hear about it. But first, let me tell you about Diane herself. Diane Campbell has always been a daydreamer. As a child, she'd concoct faraway adventures while perched in the crook of a tree on her family farm in rural Minnesota, where they have bubblies. I say that because I'm from Texas, so I make fun of you.
It's 10,000 lakes there.
Yeah, but it's very humid too.
That's okay. We make fun of Texans, so sorry.
He does. Yeah. Tay gets my up and comings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, though tree climbing has since been traded in for hammock swinging, idle hours in the forest continue to be a source of inspiration for Diane's tales of mystery and adventure. She and her husband enjoy spending their free time RVing and traversing remote mountain trails on their UTV. It's no wonder the great outdoors is frequent settings in her stories. Diane is an active member of American Christian Fiction Writers Association and currently serves on the board of the local chapter in Colorado Springs. She has been writing stories for publication since the late 1980s, and her aspirations for novel-length fictions were recently fulfilled with the publication of Point Blank, a contemporary suspense novel available in paperback, audio book, and ebook formats. Diane enjoys interacting with readers. You can contact her through her website, Diane, that's with an E on the end of it, mcampbell.net. You can also connect with her on Facebook and Twitter, or you can come to the ACFW conferences and meet her in person, like me, if we ever have one.
Yeah, if we ever get back to
the
that.
last 2 years have been canceled because of COVID.
They have.
It's very disappointing. We really thought we were going to have one this year in April, and then
it was so close.
It was, and then right at the last, it was like, no, we can't. Darn it.
Yeah.
But anyway. Okay, so Diane, this story is called Point Blank.
Yeah.
And you wrote it, and your pen name, shall we say, your author name is Diane M. Campbell, and that's CAMPBELL, so if you want to search for it. This book can be found on, Amazon? Where all can we get that?
Pretty much anywhere, I think. Yeah.
Any online store.
Any of the online outlets, and if you read ebook or if you prefer audiobook, it's on all of those.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Those of us who travel once in a while, it's sure nice to have an audiobook to listen to.
For sure.
Instead of being bored trying to find radio stations that actually work.
Right.
Okay, now.
Careful where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Now, you've also got this in some bookstores, so we could actually walk in and get one. You've got it in,
there are a couple local
Monument,
locations. Yes.
correct? And that's, tell us.
That is the Covered Treasures bookstore in Monument has it, and also the Lighthouse in La Junta has it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So either of those you could walk in. Now, have you pre-autographed those books, or would we need to hunt you down to get your autograph?
Well, I'm going to be doing a book signing in La Junta at the Lighthouse on May 21st, so that's coming up soon. I'm really excited about that.
Not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yes,
Yes,
correct.
La Junta. La Junta's not that far away. There's a Village Inn. You can get a good pie.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, I'm so excited. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to let Diane start reading, and then we'll interrupt her a couple of times for commercials, but we're going to get to hear a little bit of this Christian suspense story.
Very good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to read.
Yes, ma'am.
Here we go. Chapter 1. A gust of wind nipped my ears, and its chill crept down my spine. Turning my collar up, I shifted position on the cold metal bench. From the moment I'd stepped down from the comfort of the Mountain Motorways bus, I'd been resisting an eerie sense of familiarity with this desolate highway junction, as if I'd been here before. But that initial sensation had since waned, swallowed up by 2 hours of sitting in the dark outdoors on an uncomfortable seat. In every direction, the road lay empty and silent. I'd expected the bus stop to be in the middle of town, not out on its lonely edge. The only sign of life was an old gas station across the street with a dingy convenience store, and next to that, a rustic cafe where I had managed to get a cup of hot cocoa just before they locked up for the night. I checked my watch, 9:36. My connection was 20 minutes late. Apparently, Mountain Motorways didn't worry about being as reliable as the big national bus companies. If my phone's battery hadn't died, I could have called someone to ask about the delay. I'd gone into the gas station's convenience store an hour ago to use the restroom and to shrug off the chill, but I had no intention of going back, not after the creepy feeling I got from the greasy-looking fellow on duty. I'd found him kneeling in one of the aisles, restocking candy bars when I entered. He nodded in the general direction of the lavatory in answer to my question, then rose to his feet as I slipped to the back of the store. His gaze followed me while he worked at a wad of tobacco, filling his lower lip. I expected to buy a snack before leaving, as a token for use of the facilities, but the idea faded as I walked out of the bathroom and found him behind the cash register, eyeing me as I walked up the aisle. He ran a hand through his oily hair and looked me over before asking, "Anything else I can do for you?" His puckered lips stretched with an insinuating smile that made my skin crawl. That's when I left, with neither a word nor a morsel. Only the lingering effect of his gaze that kept me edgy all the way back to the bench. The same bench where I'd sat waiting ever since. Waiting in the middle of nowhere for a ride to a place I wasn't sure I wanted to be.
Ooh, that's a good place to take a commercial break and keep everybody tuned in for more. Your voice is wonderful. I can see why you did your own audiobook.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You make it sound so exciting. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break and we'll be back. More of Diane Campbell's Point Blank. Hey, we are back with Right Time Radio. This is Lynn Donovan. I want to take a minute to put a shout out there and say thank you, Ray Linebaugh, for sponsoring today's show. And so we are here in the studio with Diane M. Kimball, a very good friend of mine, and she is sharing her book, Point Blank, and we are going to continue listening to her wonderful reading of this story.
The same bench where I'd sat waiting ever since, waiting in the middle of nowhere for a ride to a place I wasn't sure I wanted to be. My heart skipped at a sudden movement in the periphery of my vision. A moment later, a large black cat sprang up beside me on the bench. He studied my surprise with striking blue eyes. "Hello," I scooted to give him more room. "You startled me." The cat continued to stare as if attempting telepathy. "My name's Penny, and you are?" He stepped onto my lap and nestled down with a soft mew. "Oh, I see. I'm just a warm place to rest. You live around here?" He closed his eyes to my questions. I stroked his head, detecting the soft vibration of a purr. "Shouldn't you be at home?" Home. I was far from my own, and I wondered what Dad would say when I arrived on his doorstep unannounced. At the moment, this whole trip seemed like a dumb idea. We'd rarely spoken in the past year, our relationship strained to the point of near non-existence. Since Mom's death, our shared grief had been the only common ground, a terrain of loose, barren soil, slowly eroding until only an empty chasm remained between us. College provided a diversion I'd gladly run to, but now, halfway through my sophomore year, I found my heart aching for comfort, a sense of security, of roots, of home. Would I be able to find it again with Dad, or was I better off elsewhere? That remained to be seen. The lights at the gas station flickered briefly and went out, leaving only one street light as evidence this wide spot on the highway even existed. Soon after, a jangle of keys carried across the street in the icy stillness. The station attendant had come outside and was locking the door. Soft footsteps on pavement forced me to chance a furtive glance in his direction. He was coming my way with a large bag of trash in hand. My heart raced. A harsh metallic creak made me look again. He'd lifted the lid of a bin near the curb on his side of the street to toss the garbage in. He dropped the lid with a creaking crash that jolted my nerves, then paused to stare straight at me, forcing my gaze aside. Please, stay away. Just leave me alone. An eternity passed before I heard his footsteps recede. A last glance caught him disappearing down a dark alley between the station and cafe. Relieved, I exhaled a long-held breath that hung visible in the frosty air. The cat stared at me. I guess it's just you and me now. I checked my watch again, 9:47. Still no traffic on the dim stretch of highway. Looks like the bus isn't coming. What do you think I should do? Kitty blinked, stretched to a stand, and hopped to the ground. I missed his warmth immediately. Oh, are you going to leave me out in the cold? He looked back and mewed. Was it an invitation? As he sauntered down the sidewalk, I realized it didn't matter. I couldn't sit on that bench any longer. It was late, and I needed to find a place to spend the night. Snatching my suitcase, I extended the handle and wheeled it behind me. A wide slope of scattered shrubs along the walkway rose high enough to hide what lay beyond. After only about a half a block, the cat turned into it, quickly climbing through the wild grass. Wait, you never said anything about off-roading. In moments, he had disappeared. What was I thinking, trying to follow a black cat in the dark? Kitty, Kitty, I called in vain. The edge of a rooftop peeked above the slope, partially obscured by foliage and hardly more than a shadow against the indigo sky. Probably the cat's home. Maybe I could ask to use their phone, explain that Kitty had led me to them. I looked along the sidewalk for a break to indicate a driveway. Nothing. The bus bench was still visible from where I stood, but I knew better than to go back and sit there all night. After a brief hesitation, I pulled my suitcase through the grass and began dragging it up behind me, weaving through the shrubs and bumping casters over rocks and roots. As I crested the embankment with panting breaths, the house came into view. A large, rough stone structure with a black mansard roof and foreboding dormers. Tangled ivy climbed its boxy facade, and a chaos of overgrown shrubbery and neglected flower beds encroached either side of a walkway that led to the front entry. Its imposing framework might have dissolved my courage, except for one thing. Both the porch light and a lamp behind a curtained window next to it offered a promise of cheering warmth. Surely Kitty's owner would let me make a quick phone call. I descended the hill crest, crossed an overgrown lawn of winter-dead grass, and an old cobbled drive which divided the wide lawn from the front yard. I reached the sidewalk and 3 steps that marched me up to the small pillared porch. A tarnished brass plate under the glow of the light said, "Wayfarers Inn," engraved in black script. I looked for a bell, but found only an iron knocker in the middle of the tall, dark paneled door. Kitty was nowhere to be seen, although I expected he would greet me on the porch. Instead, moments after I tapped, A petite, elderly woman appeared, her eyes peering at me over a pair of wire reading glasses. Before I could speak, she took hold of my arm. "Finally!" She drew me inside and shut the door. "Whatever has kept you out so late?" Her curly white hair waved in worried disarray as her head bobbed. My shock must have showed, because she didn't wait for an answer. "Well, at least you're not out there somewhere lost. I wouldn't have any idea where to begin looking." "For me?" It was all I could think to say. "Yes, indeed, for you. Who else?" She turned and hobbled down the hall toward the back of the house. "I don't get many guests these days, and I guess it's just as well." She turned while I slipped off my muddied shoes. "I have some hot water in the kitchen for tea, if you like. It'll help take some of the chill off." I paused at the strange quirkiness of the old woman, but relief at being indoors had begun to overrule my hesitance. "Thank you, but I only hope to use your phone."
Well, we're going to have to interrupt one more time. Sorry, because it's so good. I love it. I love it. We are going to take another commercial break, but first we want to thank Ray Linebaugh for sponsoring today's show. And now here's the rest of our commercials. We're back with Right Time Radio. This is Lynn Donovan, and we have Diane Campbell reading from her story, Point Blank. And we're going to give you just a little bit more, and that's all you get for today. Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you, but I only hope to use your phone." "Oh?" Her shoulders drew back. "It's rather late. Who would you be calling?" Well, I could have protested it was none of her business, but in fact I didn't know who to call. "Well," I stammered, thinking, "perhaps a cab or a hotel." "Whatever for? Your room is ready upstairs." I recalled the brass placard on the porch. Right, an inn. Perhaps she mistook me for a previous guest. I attempted to replace my confusion with a confident smile. "Thank you, I'm glad you have room for me." She spun around on sensible black pumps. "Come along, then. The kettle may already be boiling." With that, she marched through a swinging door at the end of the hall. I propped my suitcase against an umbrella stand in the corner beside me. A formal parlor was visible through a wide entry to my left. The room overflowed with vintage furniture, including the lamp I'd noticed from outside. Time-worn furnishings, but tidy. To my right was another wide entrance with its sliding pocket doors drawn shut. Ahead, a dark oak staircase led upstairs on the left side of the passage, its newel post topped with a carved lion's head. Despite its menacing expression, I couldn't resist patting it as I walked down the hall. "You have a lovely house," I told the woman when I reached the kitchen. Though decades out of date, it was clean and bright. She pointed me toward a vintage dinette at one side of the room and carried a kettle over from the stove. "That's what you said earlier." She poured my cup and another for herself. "Earlier?" "When you first arrived, my dear." She looked at me over her glasses again. "You complimented the house. That is, until you saw the shared bath upstairs. But don't worry, there are no other guests tonight. You'll have it all to yourself."
All right, that's all we're going to share with you. Now, first of all, before I tell everybody where to get this again, this got an award. Tell us about that.
Yes, I entered it in ACFW's Genesis contest that they run annually, and it won first place honors.
Wow,
in
that's
the
awesome.
mystery suspense category.
Very
So,
cool.
Very
So
exciting. Yes.
You really want to get this book and read it. So we could go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Anywhere online that
Pretty
you
much
can buy
anywhere.
books.
Kobo, yeah, all those places where you might get ebooks, paperbacks, or
Right.
audio.
And the
yeah.
audios. And then if they want to get it in person, they can go to the
Covered Treasures,
Treasures.
in Monument carries it, and La
Lighthouse.
Junta Lighthouse Bookstore also has it
nice.
right now.
And then not this Friday, but next Friday, you're going to be there in person.
I will
So
be.
they
I'm
could
really
get-
excited
Yeah,
about this.
we
A
could
chance
get
to talk
to
to
you
readers.
from me, your friend, Diane Campbell.
I love getting a chance to talk with readers. So if anyone in that area wants to come by the Lighthouse and visit with me, I would love to get a chance to meet readers.
Yeah, and we talked about we're not real sure what their hours are, but whatever that store's hours is, so you can Google that and figure it out. But we think it's like
Absolutely.
10 till 4.
10 to 4,
Like
I think, are the hours I'm expected to be there. So, yeah.
yeah, awesome. That's going to be so great. Then you can meet Diane in person since you can't see what she looks like on the radio.
You can if you look close.
Well, if we angle the mic
Really,
just
yeah,
right.
angle.
I'm always holding things up to the mic so the audience can see it. Well, listen, thank you so much for being here, Diane. All this time I've known you, and I've never had you on the show, and I apologize for that.
That's quite all right. I'm
Thank
thrilled to
you.
be here. I appreciate you inviting me to come.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
What we didn't tell you is her husband's here too, so he's secretly lurking with the
Yes.
camera, taking pictures. So be sure you tune in next week. We have got Tracy Beach and Pam Stetler. They are going to be talking about the 100-year celebration of the Pueblo flood.
Oh, okay.
And what all they've got going on. I think it's the Elks. Pam's part of the Elks, and of course Tracy wrote the book. There's been an article recently in the paper about it, and it's really going to be an amazing event to celebrate those who lived, I guess, and got through it. It was quite an ordeal. So 100 years since that flood is like 2 weeks after that. That's as soon as we could get her in. So. Hey, Tay, how you doing?
Good, you?
I haven't even said hello to you. We just walked in and started working.
You get back-to-back shows. Sometimes
I hear ya.
It's not that I don't try to be rude. I just have to
Sure.
get stuff set up so we can record it, and there's
Yeah.
other things going on. So.
And I appreciate that because we always put a recording on the
Yeah.
website. That's Right Time Radio at my-free.website. So you can rehear it later or send it to your friends or whatever you want to do. So if you want to be on the show, email me, righttimeradio@gmail.com. And that's all I got.
There we go.
Thanks for being here, Diane.
Coast to Coast fills the overnight Saturday and Sunday, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. AM 1400 KRLN, Canyon City.